Chicken is almost synonymous with America, as in the food product rather than the bird. An average American eats 24 of our little winged friends each year, so it's hard to believe that for most of American history, chicken was a bit of a luxury. Whilst chickens were raised by farmers for eggs, people would only really occasionally eat old hens or discarded cockerels, neither of which were particularly fat or tasty. But that all suddenly changed in 1923, because it turns out the birth of the American chicken industry, now worth an obscene $50 billion, all comes down to one pivotal mistake: a simple shipping error. And it all begins with Cecile Long Steele of rural Delaware. The historical information we have about Cecile's character is slim and pretty uncharitable. Apparently she had red hair and a bad temper, and that's it. But what we do know is that this housewife raised a few chickens to help support her family. So in 1923, Cecile is ordering her usual yearly resupply of 50 chicks from a Mr. Vernon Steen of Dagsborough. Little did she know that Mr. Steen would hallucinate an extra zero in her order, and a few days later 500 babbling chicks show up to the small homestead of this very confused and presumably angry Cecile Steele. Now essentially overflowing with chickens, Steele might have returned them, but instead she took a gamble that was about to change the world. She decided to keep them, housing them in a shed and fattening them up for 18 weeks so they could be sold for meat as broiler chickens. Fortunately for Cecile, America was just starting to develop its now legendary taste for chicken, and the Roaring Twenties were a time where people had a bit more cash. So she managed to sell the 387 surviving birds to restaurants and hotels. This transaction was so profitable that the next year Cecile, increasingly impervious to the smell of chicken poo, ordered 1,000 more, and by 1928 she was rocking almost 30,000 chickens. Her husband Wilmer quit his job at the Coast Guard, and the couple suddenly found themselves incredibly wealthy chicken barons, and their success didn't go unnoticed. First neighbours and eventually farmers all over Delaware got in on the action. By 1928 there were 500 broiler chicken farms just in Cecile's small township, and around the same time the discovery of vitamin A and D did wonders for chicken mortality rates, and incubators were finally put to a good industrial capitalist use. America's diet shifted rapidly, and throughout the century, chicken, initially consumed far less than pork and beef, became the nation's favourite meat. As for Cecile, she wasn't actually able to enjoy her success for long. She and Wilmer bought a $10,000 yacht called the Law, in what, retrospectively, you might call a bad decision, because in 1940 it exploded with them on it after an engine backfire. Newspaper reports of the Steele's confusing deaths would focus entirely on Wilmer's success, and it wasn't until 1983 that Cecile, now recognised as birthing the chicken industry, was named into the Delaware Women's Hall of Fame. The funny thing is that chickens, non-native to Europe and thus once exotic, were venerated during the Iron Age. In fact, dead people even used to get buried with them. They were less foodie and more godly before the Romans spread about and made eating eggs cool. Now we slaughter an immense 74 billion chickens every year worldwide, at a significant cost to the environment. And this remarkable metamorphosis of human-chicken relations can be traced in no small part back to a simple mistake.